Hey everybody, this is John Bruni, and we have a fantastic guest with us today. Alberto Crane is an accomplished American martial artist. He is a trailblazer, and believe me when I say that, that is true. A teacher in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Alberto became one of the first Americans to receive a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu in the sport's home country of Brazil. He later entered the MMA world, where he earned a stunning 15-5 record, including stints in the UFC and becoming the King of the Cage champion. He's had his own martial arts instruction gyms for over 2 decades. In 2012, Alberto faced a host of physical challenges. The injuries from his fighting career, coupled with the multiple sclerosis diagnosis, had really taken a toll on his body. Tacfit, a system that Scott Sonnon first introduced Alberto to in 2007, allowed him to heal himself and has given him a second chance. And he believes in the system so much that he eventually became the CEO. And he's got a story to tell today. Welcome to the show, Master Alberto Crane.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Really looking forward to the show today. And we got a lot of ground that we want to cover. And the first thing I want to talk about is, how did you discover jiu-jitsu? Like, did you discover jiu-jitsu, or did jiu-jitsu discover you? How did that all come about?
Right. That's right. That's a good question. But I was 18 years old, right out of high school, and I did. Some friends of mine were doing it. I was working at a restaurant, and they invited me to do a jiu-jitsu class. And I had a friend who was much smaller than me, and he armbarred me like probably about 8 times. So he did it once. I was like, let's go again. Let's go again. And I couldn't believe it. It blew my mind. And so after that day, I never missed. I never missed a class. At those times, there was 2 classes a week, but I made sure I never missed. And I totally became obsessed. And then one of my, best friends, he moved down to Brazil, and that's the road I traveled soon after.
Yeah, let's talk about that a bit. How did you end up training in Brazil, and what was it like training in Rio? How is, jiu-jitsu when you're in the home country where everything originated with that? How is it different training there than it would be in America?
Yeah, so that was in the mid 90s, right? So, I read a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Mm-hmm. And, you write your goals down and add, the different principles, right? And so I wrote down my goals, and my goal was to, be the best of the world. And so that was the map. That was the trail that I had to go to. And the best place in the world to really learn at the time was Brazil. That was the source, right? That was where you had to go to really learn the real stuff. And so that's what I did. I moved down to Brazil. I didn't speak any Portuguese. I saved my money and sold everything I had, and burnt all my bridges and bridges and ships, however you want to say it. And just never looked back, and went all in as a teenager. And it's been pretty crazy. It's been pretty crazy and an amazing journey. I doubted myself many, many days. Like, what am I doing here? Because back then it was in the early days. It was before the UFC was like mainstream. So there wasn't really too many opportunities, right? That I could see, but I just loved it, right? I really loved it. And so, I lived in Rio de Janeiro at first, and then I moved to the 3rd largest city, Belo Horizonte. And I was definitely, they didn't want to teach you an American, jiu-jitsu or the secrets, right, at the time. So it was an interesting time, and you had to really kind of become one, right? And once I became like a brother, part of the team, then I feel like I really evolved my game and really learned the secrets and really learned what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is about. And just it's also about the relationships, And so I think for me, I feel really blessed because not only did I get the jiu-jitsu, but I also got the Brazilian culture with that. Mm-hmm. And I've tried to recreate that with the gyms I've had here now, and that same culture of connection, human connection, belonging, making fun of people when they act stupid, or just making fun of people, period, right? Mm-hmm. Having fun, but training hard, doing your best, every single day. And just those principles, I was really lucky because my professor was Draculino. He's a smaller guy. He just was an amazing role model example. So I was really blessed because I found him after I went to Rio de Janeiro and I moved to Belo Horizonte. And so one of the reasons I moved there at the beginning, it was just white belts and blue belts, like beginner guys. And in there was the Gracie Baja gym. So in Rio de Janeiro, that was where all the black belts and all the big world champions were. But I decided to move to a smaller city, Belo Horizonte. It's the third largest city, so it's a big city. And decided to move with Draculino and his team, they were all beginners pretty much, because I felt the connection of all the people in the group. And it turned out later on, we ended up being like the best team really as from one school in Brazil, but I think around the world. We had so many black belt world champions, so many champions, still to this day, so it was one of the best decisions I made. It was just the instinct, right? A gut instinct, a decision. And I'm glad I made it. I'm glad I listened to my instinct, and not on paper. It wouldn't make sense, right? If you do the calculations, but I felt the connection, and I felt like this is where I want to be. This is where I can thrive. And that's what I did. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And on the competition front, but also just as a lifestyle and really understanding what it's really, what jiu-jitsu is really about. It's about connection. It's about, community, right? Like brotherhood and friends that I still have, like my best friends is from the mats from those days, 25 years ago, over 20 years ago, so I want that. I wish that for everybody.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was in Brazil for a performance tour back in the late 80s, and the culture is much different to me than America because it's much more relational. We would have a performance scheduled, for like 6 o'clock, but they said, you know what, we might not start till 6:30 till everybody gets here. It was like, it's all about building the relationships. Was Guadana still around when you were there?
Guadana, of course.
Oh man, yeah. I was all about the Guadana and the tea. I mean, it was just such awesome stuff. But so speaking of that, how long did it take before people like accepted you into, the fold? As far as, did you have to pay a lot of dues before they were going to really let you in, proving yourself, or was that something that just came naturally?
I think it was me moving to that third largest city and training with Draculino, because there weren't a lot of foreigners there. Like in Rio de Janeiro, there were a lot of foreigners that would come in and try to learn like the secrets, right? And I think me moving to that smaller, it's not a small, I keep saying that, but it's the third largest city. So the other city where there weren't a lot of foreigners, and then just the connection. Like I came up with those guys, mm-hmm. and I was with them in the battles, and I was right there with them, and I think that changed it for me. I really felt the connections, and Draculino, he really wanted us to do well, so he put his heart and soul into us. And that was, I think I never felt that once I went there. And I think that was what it was for me, is that I didn't feel that. I felt like I was one of them. That was my team. That is my team. I went back actually maybe like last month, and it was the 25-year anniversary of our gym. And it was something else that's remarkable. All of us have kids now, and most everybody's pretty healthy, but there's a couple of guys that they're not around anymore, and but we're all super, super tight. Doesn't matter, 20 years, 25 years, 10 years, like we're all a bunch of kids in there, we're together.
That's a brotherhood, I'm sure. I mean, such bonds. And, we live in a day to day, like where everybody posts all their training online, and here's what we do. I know we're going to get into Tacfit in a minute, but when you first start out, like in Brazil, what does a typical conditioning or fight prep session look like? I mean, you don't have to reveal any secrets, but the conditioning, everybody puts their conditioning online today. What was it like, in Brazil? What would a typical training day look like?
We had some top trainers, we had some top trainers that would help us out, and guys that, so, but it was kind of like you would overtrain, it was like a different time. Right. Mm-hmm. So the secret's really is Scott Sonnon, that's the secret, because he was the first guy saying all these different things, this different type of training, way back before it was science, but now because of the imaging and all the technology we have, it is science. Right. So it was, it was like hardcore, and there's a part of that, right? You have to push your limits, and you have to, no pun intended on that.
That's all right. We'll take it. I love it.
You have to push your limits. You have to go all in, you know, push, you know, like push yourself till you can't push yourself anymore, and then push some more. And I think there's a spiritual component to that, right? That makes you grow. But at the same time, you need to listen to Scott Sonnon, and you know, you get strong in the recovery and the recovery aspects, you know. But we used to just overtrain. You know, there's a saying like every day pujada, you know, like every day it's a fight, you know, like you know, it's a full on brawl, you know. And that's how it was. That was the mentality, really. It was just like balls to the wall, like, you know, you know, the
Well,
strongest of the, you know, the strongest survive, you know. Strong.
well, and that's what I'm saying, is because things evolve so much. You know, today, you know, we know we're going to get into a lot of this stuff. It's totally different mindset because your body can only handle so much. You know, there's only so much stressors that you can, you know, impose on the body. But that's what I was just trying to help people know, is that there was a different time when training was like, you know, if you just survive it, you know, if you just made it through the day, you know, made it through, because like you said, everything was just, you know, absolutely all out. Now, you had a very successful MMA career. I want to ask, what was your favorite fight? Or do you have one?
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite fight, I've had a couple, you know, but I think, you know, my favorite fight, it was actually my third fight. It was for the King of the Cage belt. It was on pay-per-view, and it got like, the ratings were pretty close to the UFC championship at the time, which was BJ Penn and Call Uno. And it was only, like I said, my only third fight, but it got so much hype because we were both like top level grapplers, you know, and I got to fight at home in New Mexico. I live in Los Angeles now, but I'm from New Mexico originally, and I had fought all around the world. I was one of the top guys in the world at the time. So for me to fight in New Mexico was a big deal. And I don't know if you've heard of Greg Jackson, you know, but him and all the guys, his team, you know, I was trained by him, so he's my coach. And then just all my gym in Santa Fe, New Mexico, because I was from Santa Fe, everybody was there. So the whole place was chanting my name, you know. The guy was a big deal. He was a top 10 guy. You know, he had just gone to Japan and beat this guy, Romino Sato, who had beat just so he was the first lightweight MMA like superstar, you know. Takanori Gomi, who ended up, you know, being like the top number one for many, many years. He made his name by beating him. So this guy had just gone to Japan and beat him, and he was very hyped up. And yeah, I was representing the 505 New Mexico. I was really representing the state and the people and the coaches. You know, it was amazing, you know, and I was very close. It was like a split decision. I remember I was so excited that I didn't sleep all night, you know, and I can't say there's been a lot of days like that or evenings. I sleep pretty good, you know, but I didn't sleep all night. I was so excited. I was so worked up, you know, from that moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. And hopefully people can go and look that up. I think I actually saw that one on old DVD. King of the Cage used to have DVD sets, you know, so it's awesome. Hopefully people can look that up. Now let's get into this thing, because again, this is where I kind of wanted to spend our time today. Incredible career. You know, you paid the price. You know, very few people can ever say they were accepted into the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like you were. That takes an incredible toll on your body. I don't think anybody understands, you know, because we're talking about mixed martial arts, you know, it's striking, it's your joints, you know, the grappling, the tosses, the rolls, the conditioning. It takes such a physical toll on your body. And then later on being your diagnosis with what you had to overcome. Can you share with us how you were able to overcome those physical challenges? Because it's an incredible story.
Yeah. So everything in my body hurt, you know. So probably I remember when I first got into the UFC, I couldn't do one push-up because I was so beat up from just all the years of going, pushing the limits and, training hardcore, right? And I didn't know about the body and balance, and so you do it pushing. You're always in that flexion position. Mm-hmm. And so I was a mess. I couldn't do one push-up. I was doing like Hindu push-ups, like just different angles so I could just keep moving, It's really a testament, right, of the human spirit, like what we're capable of.
Absolutely.
When you can't move, so so UFC when I first got to UFC, I couldn't do one push-up. That was my where I was at, and I've had injuries in every part of my body, right? My neck, my thoracic, every part of my spine, my shoulders, my elbows, my my wrists, right? Fingers, of course, hips and knees, knees and elbows, I think are probably the worst. Ankles, of course, big and toes. One of my first, funny, right? My worst injuries is actually like my big toe. It was like a week before the UFC, because you can't move, right? You have
You're
no
feeling
movement.
it every time you move.
Yeah, so that I had that, and I first met Scott Sonnon, after he helped me for my second UFC fight. So just randomly, my first jiu-jitsu coach, he was a Navy SEAL, and he's like, you need to get with this guy. He saw what happened in the UFC debuts. You need to get with this guy. So I trusted him. So I was like, okay. And he comes out and he comes with the clipboard and he's taking notes and and showing me some like these different movements and I was like, okay, I was kind of different. I had some top trainers, like I said, and it was like very different, right? But I trusted my coach, and so I was like, okay, and then I was so far rotated in, with my arms, and I couldn't even do the dead man's pose, right? And so he did some stretches and stuff and showed me some things. But and we did our training protocols. But the one thing that really stuck with me is I got thrown on my head, training in a fight. And training for a fight, and my neck was so bad, right? I was in so much pain all day long, every day. And usually you go to the doctor, they give you some pain pills, right, to deal with that. And, they talk about maybe about surgery, right? And so Scott was like, and of course I told him because he was training me, and he's like, yeah, move your head like this, and I did that, he's like, every time you have pain, do that movement, and he showed me that movement. Instead of it being 4 to 6 weeks, I was able to heal myself pretty much in a week. So anytime I had pain, I did movement. And it was that one thing that really stuck with me that made me it just stayed in my soul. If you want to say that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it stayed in my soul. And I was like, what? I can heal myself with movement. I can, what, and so I always wanted to train in it, and I never really had the opportunity. I went to the website a couple times, the RMAX website, the old RMAX website, and looked at the coaches, but I just didn't really trust, I don't know if I was like, I'm not sure, but I always wanted to, subconsciously. And then I got reconnected with Scott on social media, and he always took the time to answer questions for me and help me out. And so fast forward 5 years, and they retest me for my fight license. Every 5 years they make you do brain MRI. And so 5 years forward, and I get a brain MRI, and they find these lesions. They actually found it 5 years before, but it was much smaller, and now it's much bigger. And we can't let you fight. We need to do more tests. And so they have these big all these tests that I had to do, and it took about 3 or 4 months. And so I did them all, these neurological tests. And then they are like, oh, sorry, it looks like you have multiple sclerosis, and we can't let you fight anymore. And it was, it was kind of it's sad. It was like a little bit, I didn't process it. I couldn't process it. Right. But everybody treated me, like the nurses and everything, like my life's over. And they gave me basically a stack of drug books, to look at, to see which one I wanted to take. Right. That was the solution. So I got the books and I started to look at them, and, it says it may or may not help you. Right. And so I was like, man, that's crazy, and I started to do more research, and you see these guys within 6 months, they're in wheelchairs and they can't walk anymore. So I was like, man, you have that in the back of your head. Right. And so I asked the doctor before I left the office, actually, can I still do jiu-jitsu? He said, yeah. It's like, okay, cool. So I did a world tour with jiu-jitsu. I was like, what if I can't do it? They opened up these international tournaments. I did a world tour, and I had when you ask me the top moment, for me, one of my top moments was actually the last leg on my trip. It was I probably competed for about 3 years, nonstop, almost every month. It was master divisions and stuff, over a certain age, right? And I competed 3 weeks in a row. I won this no-gi world championship, and then my friend was going to Spain and he's going to do a seminar. I was like, hey, come out, we'll do a seminar together. I was like, okay, cool. And I look up the calendar, and I saw there was 2 tournaments in Europe the week after, and then the week after that. And so the next leg was in Berlin, I think, Germany. And then the following one was in Spain where he was going. And so it all worked out. So I was like, okay, cool. But he was going to do it with me, the tournaments, but he ended up flaking. So I did it by myself. And first week was cool. And then the second tournament after my third week in a row, I didn't feel good like the night before. I felt like maybe I was just, tired from fatigue from the adrenaline and all that, and then the next morning, same thing. And then I went in and I fell off. I couldn't eat, but I felt like off. And then I did my first match, and I did my little move, and then the guy's weight dropped on my stomach, and I felt like I was going to throw up, and then I got through the match, I lost the match, but I got through the match and I got off the mat and I threw up, I had food poisoning.
Man.
Food poisoning. And so I was really crushed, and I was like pale, and I was just sitting there, and I was in Spain. I was in Madrid, Spain, right? I was by myself, right? But of course you become friends with the other competitors and stuff. And so the first guy I went against, we became friends, and then they're like, you had to do another match in my division. Like, you're gonna do the match? I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go, And I went out there and actually was hanging in there, and then I ended up getting choked out unconscious, and I'd never been choked unconscious in my life. And I was really devastated after that. I was like super bummed out. And that first guy that I went against, he's like, "You're gonna do the open weight, the absolute weight?" And I was like, no, I was super crushed, right? And he's like, "Come on, just do it. Maybe you'll feel better by the end of the day." So I put my name down, and then I sat down, and I was waiting. I was like, what am I going to do? Feel sorry for myself at the hotel room or, at the tournament? So I just stayed at the tournament, and I couldn't drink water. I couldn't eat. You feel like you have the flu, right? When you have food poisoning. And I started telling myself, like, I believe in my technique, and I started to feel good, and I just kept saying it obsessively. I believe in my technique. I believe in my technique. I believe in my technique for hours, And then I went out and I won my first match. Went out again, big guys too, because it's open weight,
Love it.
Second match, third match, and I won the whole thing, I won the whole thing, and it was one of my highlights of my career because, I had nothing. I had no strength. I had nothing in the tank, but I did, and it really showed me like the human spirit, like what we're capable of. And after that, it was my last leg on my competition things, on that tour. And I knew at that moment, like, I got this, I got this. I have this multiple sclerosis thing. I have this. I got it, I got the mindset from the martial arts. And then my subconscious took me to the Tacfit certification with Scott Sonnon in Bellingham, Washington. And I was like, I went there finally after all these years because he had trained me. It was like 10 years before, And so I finally made it out there. And, so I tried to prepare, but, it's hard to prepare because the stuff was so different. And so then I did the first search and I was like, okay, cool. I get a second chance. And so I started doing it. We started doing it in my gym too, and then within a couple of weeks, I started feeling better. Like, this is good for me, and I went to the calendar, the RMAX calendar, and I went to every single workshop, every single certification that was on the calendar. And I started feeling things, like I used to have so much pain. I couldn't put my seatbelt on in my car. Everything started to improve in myself, and my brain started to, improve too. I couldn't read. I couldn't comprehend for a while. I don't know if it was from the lesions or whatever, getting hit, who knows, probably a combination. But I didn't dream for 10 years. I was able to dream again. So I felt things happening from the inside out, besides like what happens after that of losing fat and getting really, really good shape. But I felt myself like improving, getting better, like healthier and everything else. I knew how I felt, And so I went to 51 workshops and certifications, in like, I don't know, 3 years. Most of them were like in 2 years,
Crazy.
Yeah. But I felt myself, just improving. And my first dream, what's funny enough, is the club bells, like, you do over your shoulders and then you catch it. And so when you bring it up first, your legs are bent, and then you lock your legs, and then you do the cast. And so just really focusing really, really hard on the technique. And I woke up from the dream, and that's what I remembered my dream for the first time in 10 years. And so, yeah, I knew something was happening within me. And so I just kept going, and, just just level 1. I did all these certs and Europe and, all over the Latin America and everywhere I could. Like I said, I didn't go to Africa and I didn't go to Asia, but I went to every single other one. So I got to know the community all around the world in that process as well, all the leaders that we have. And it really, I mean, it sounds cliche, but it changed my life. It gave me my life back. It gave me my life back. I was at a hard time talking, at a hard time walking, and I have a gym right after act a certain way. And, sure, but when I go home, like, we have, a family of 3 kids and stuff. Like, I couldn't play with my kids, I was in such bad pain and just couldn't move, and it really taught me, like, mobility is life. Mobility, if you lose your mobility, like, you lose your life, basically, So, like I said, I started getting better and better and better. And went from the level 1 to the level 2, did the team leader kind of training. And I just, like I said, it made me, like, just keep moving up and getting better. There was some internal things with the RMAX, like the leadership, I got mentored by, an Italian guy that was, like, the head trainer at the time. And so there was some splits and stuff. And, Scott was always there for me, and even with him and his partner and stuff. And I just wanted to train, and I've been running facilities for so long, that I really understand the culture of training. And I feel like Tacfit is a martial art. It's just with yourself. It's not you against anybody else, it's just you with yourself. And the fight is the technique, and the technique is connecting your breath with the correct structure and the movement, Of course, keeping your heart rate right, and that your breath, you start to overbreathe, right, if your heart rate gets too high. So it's just truly a masterpiece. And when you start to study all the neuroscience and all the just everything that went behind every piece of this system, which I have been doing the last few years, and I'm a beginner, but it's just I'm mind blown, and I'm proof is in the pudding. And so I know what it's done for me, and I know what it's doing for other people that have been training it here at my gym for the last 4 years, So it's crazy, And so anyway, it was like a year ago pretty much that I came in, and Scott asked me to, become, like, the CEO and support the system. And it's my life, jiu-jitsu is my life, but this is a part of it. I tell my black belt friends, like, yes, jiu-jitsu is the best, right? But we need Tacfit, I'm biased, right? But Tacfit can be for everybody. You're a powerlifter, strongman, So when it's all capoeiristas, whoever you are, if you don't do anything, it's just life, right? Being the best at living, right? And so I just like I said, jiu-jitsu is my life, and it gave me the spirit, and Tacfit gave me the right techniques and the right stuff behind it to be able to heal myself and help others. And it's crazy because all my relationships in my life too have improved. It's crazy. I just feel more connected to everything, and it's all just from connecting my breath. It sounds so simple, right? My breath with the correct movement and the technique, and but it's crazy how amazing and how life changing it is, So after Scott asked me that, it's like I'm dedicating my life, to just seeing the system grow, and we want to reach 1 billion people, and really, I think we can help a lot of people. I know we can help a lot of people, so I want to give everything I have towards that, and support my jiu-jitsu black belt buddies and jiu-jitsu community, but I want to help everybody, because it's for everybody.
Yeah, it is. And let's talk about a couple of things. I think it's interesting. First is once you set your mind to something and you focus on that, you talk about your subconscious leading you to the right people. And I think that's just so key is once people decide I've made this decision, this is my goal, this is what's going to happen, how all those things begin to fall into place. And it's so interesting, you talk about, Scott, some of the things when you first start to look at them, you think, whoa, we want to do a reset and do something that, one of the things is the shaking the jowls like a dog, and some of these things you say, whoa, I've never seen this kind of stuff before. And then it works instantly. You start to feel instant results. You do vibration drills, or you do something like Flow Fit, where all of a sudden you realize, man, I had no idea that I had things I needed to unlock.
Yep.
It's an amazing system. And so I want to talk about this whole idea. Tacfit is known as the world's smartest workout. Can you tell everybody why that is?
It was called the world's smartest workout, I think the men's health magazine, right, in Australia some years back. And it's just, I mean, it's Scott, right? He was diagnosed with learning disabilities. He was dyslexic as a kid, right? That's so funny, right? He was called dumb and and everything else, right, on the opposite end of that. But it's his brain, right? Because he thinks differently, and he went to study in Russia and martial art. He found his learning style through martial arts, right? And so it's called the world's smartest workouts because of his brain and how much brain and thought precision he's put into every single piece of the system. It's not something like just like some gimmick or anything. It's like the real deal. It's what we all need to do, and like I said, it's for everybody. But it's the future of training, And before, I go to when I was, getting more and more like obsessed, with the system. You start going to old forums and stuff, and you see some of the squabbles and some of the things he had to battle people with, because people were calling him a quack and crazy and this and that. But now it's all science, right? Yep. And he's been saying these things for 20 years, but now it's all science. And so it's the future of training. It's all the right stuff. And so I'm just really excited to really spread it. And we're still ahead with all the things that we do. And our community is like, it's the real deal, like from all over the world. It's so international. Every country, I mean, Brazil, like the European countries, it's amazing, the community that we have. So I'm just really excited to see it grow and see and get it what it deserves, We're really the world's smartest workout.
I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and we're going to get back to our guest in just a moment. But I want to share with you a quick word about our sponsors. The Pressing Limits podcast is brought to you by ZionMissionaryChurch.net, where you can listen and watch messages, share prayer requests, or even find out how to plan a visit. And also by NeuroPowerSource.com. These are resources for your mind, your body, and your spirit. You're going to find all the recommended supplements and gear I use, including the Be Strong bands, the new Juve 3.0 system, clear light infrared saunas, and so much more. You're going to be sure to want to check it out. Absolutely, and we're going to have Scott on in our next podcast, talk a little more deeper on this, but I'd like you to touch on how Tacfit improves flow and helps to unlock hidden roadblocks to mobility and resilience. Like there's these things in our bodies we don't even know because it's blocking us on a lot of different levels, and we can talk about that in a moment. How does Tacfit begin to remove these things for people who don't know them? And I'm going to ask them to get on the website later because especially with COVID, if you're locked down, most of these things are digital. You can download it and have instant results. But can you talk to us a little bit about how it removes these hidden roadblocks to mobility and resilience?
Yeah. So, the last, since I got into Tacfit, I've been obsessed on neuroscience things and fascia, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like they say, like fascia is like the nervous system too, right? But you have your immune system, and it looks like if you eat an orange, right? It's all the white stuff around every slice. The stuff that's when you peel the skin off, it's the skin, the layers of the skin, right? It's every slice of the orange and every fiber in between the orange. It interconnects everything, right? And they're saying now like it's the new organ, right? But it interconnects everything, right? And so it adapts to how we think, how we move, how we do things, right? And so when you start to move with your breath, because everything's interconnected, right? Your diaphragm connecting to all the different things. And so, like I said, it's Scott's brain. I'm trying to understand it when I read the books and the paragraph. It takes me maybe a year to break down a paragraph. But it's pretty much that. Like your immune system, right? Inflammation is in there. Your hormones, your endocrine system is in there. And then, nervous system dictates all of that, right? So when you move in all those different directions, it balances everything, just like a sound thing, right? Like a mixer, right? It just balances everything. So everything is flowing through your body at the right way, because things are stuck, right? It's like I kind of, give the example of like a boba tea, right? There's like the little balls in there, and sometimes you can't suck the tea out, right? So you have to blow it out, right? So connecting your breath, blows it out, And so I even did like in January, I did a dissection of a human cadaver, because that's how obsessed I am with just everything of the body, just trying to understand why this system works, it's like it does. And I was like, what does a nerve look like? Right. Because also with MS, your immune system attacks your myelin sheath, right, which is like the coating around your nerve to get, the electrical currents to where you want to do. And so it's like fascia around the nerve, right? Or they say like 60%, I'm not sure, something like that, 70%. And then there's the myelin, which is like the little the fatty tissue, right? Which when you practice things, it gets thicker, right? The insulation. And then inside the nerve, what's a nerve consist of? Right? What is that? What does a nerve look like? Like you can see the pictures, right? It's like a blue little line on the dolls, right? On the paper, right? But what does a nerve look like? What does that even look like? And the guy was telling me it's like pudding. It's like basically like liquid. It's like pudding, right? Thicker like pudding, consistency of pudding. And so that's exactly it. We're all just like water, and everything, it remembers everything. And, it's just like when you move, you unlock all those things that are just stuck together, right? From our thoughts, from traumas, from overuse, from misuse, right? Underuse, not using it enough too, right? And so it just puts you in the right balance. And like I said, with the mixer thing, it just balances you out. And with that, your brain works its best, because everything's interconnected, right? And so if your body's not, if everything's not moving right, you can't think right too, right? So everything is interconnected. And so, like I said, again, going back to, it's all Scott's brain and him just thinking differently, being so far ahead of the game. And a lot of people have kind of tried to copy him and stuff, and use some of his stuff, right, and just call it as their own. But I call him the grandmaster, the GM, of all this, and a lot of people don't know, right? But he truly is, he's the game changer. And so I want people to know that, I want people to know that. I want it to, I want to help it spread, right? But I also want people to know about Scott Sonnon.
Yeah, and also this is one of the things that's really interesting to me when you start to do some of these. Talking about the 6 degrees of freedom. It's freedom, right? 6 degrees of freedom.
Yeah, 6 degrees of freedom, or 6 degree flow, 6 degrees of freedom, or a flow fit, right?
So you start to do some of these things when you start to move, because again, as a culture, we sit so much. Our bodies are created to do these incredible things, and yet we are locked into these positions so often. When people start doing a lot of the Tacfit things, and again, even though the programs are different, they all have some components that are the same as far as, the things that it's going to do, the results, how it's going to change your body. But I have found that Tacfit and these type of programs actually affect the emotional health of people, the reactions to fear and everything else. Can you talk about the emotional and mental side of that? It's not just a physical thing.
Yeah. So, like Scott breaks things down. We were talking about fascia, but let's say you lift weights, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And with time, right, that's how you get stronger, right? But if you don't, that's why it's so important to stretch and to release tension in the body, right? Because your body adapts, right? And then you can lose mobility because you don't turn off those muscles, and you get that residual tension, right? So that's the first level, right? And then your body actually adapts, right? Throws down more fibroblasts, more layers, right? Of the white stuff, right? And then you get myofascial density. And then the third level, right, is amnesia, motor amnesia, where your body actually forgets how to move in that direction. For example, like twisting my body like I did, right? And I don't know if that was from whatever it was from being in flexion so long and probably not moving properly, right? Like maybe sitting down because everything did hurt. So maybe just being stuck in that position. And then the last step that Scott talks about, that he calls it, is fear reactivity, right? You're just scared to move in that direction. Where I was at, I was in full body fear reactivity, right? So everything hurt to move. What's crazy though? Yeah, for jiu-jitsu, I could get so excited that my nervous system would override that. But the rest of the day, I would be a disaster, But those are the 4 levels, the 4 stages, really, And that's why it's so important to catch yourself when after you work out, you train, right? To release that tension in the body, because that's where it starts. And you can get stronger but it's important to also release the tension so you recover, right? Because most of the soreness and stuff comes from you not turning off the muscles, for example, on the squats, right? And then just stretching out and, pulling, maybe flexing the opposite, the antagonist muscle, right? To turn off the muscle that you use, right? And then because of the release of tension, it stops working because it just stays on. You don't turn it off. So that you can turn off the muscles, right? So it can start the recovery process. Also turn on the parasympathetic, the relaxing, the recovery nervous system. So I do that in my jiu-jitsu classes. I apply it to everything that we do. And, people feel great, instead of feeling like they're wrecked, they totally recover. They can train more. They can train, let's say harder, but they can train harder. They can train more. They can train better. They can live better, so why wouldn't you do that, right? You can prevent injuries, right? You can recover from injuries if you do get hurt. You know what to do, like all the interflow stuff, right? All the movements of all the joints. We learn how to move all the joints in all the different directions, and then of course we can increase the complexity for the brain and everything else. And then we increase our performance. So why wouldn't you do it, right? Why wouldn't you do it? I think just people didn't know about it, right? But hopefully we can change that a little bit.
And, what's so interesting about this is Tacfit begins with most of the programs. You want people to have body weight mastery before incorporating the clubs and the kettlebells and the maces, which, I said, I love club bells. I use club bells almost every single day. Sometimes overdo it. Sometimes use the ones are too heavy and I need to go back off. But they have these great tools, ancient tools, really, when it comes to clubs and maces. But why is it so important that people begin with body weight mastery before they move on to some of the advanced programs?
I think because you can make mistakes, but I don't think that's a law. I think it's all about how you train, right? You don't have to grab the heaviest club bell. You can go lighter, because I think it's all interconnected. If you really learn the 7 key components of the body, right, with the club bells and stuff, you can apply that to the body weight as well, So for me, I had such bad elbows, from all the the arm bars and things like that, from fighting, and it really helped me so much just training with the club bell. It took me 6 months to actually straighten my elbows out, just because of all the damage that I had. So I don't think it's an exact rule, but it primes your, if you're going heavy, you don't want to go heavy anyway right away with the club bells. You want to learn the technique first, So I think it's just the approach and the approach of how you approach everything, and how to train, but body weight is usually easier. But for me, man, I couldn't open my hands up. I had broken my wrist really bad. So I couldn't put my hands on the ground. I was doing everything on my fist, I was putting my fists on the ground to do a push-up and stuff for probably a decade, And it wasn't until this couple of years ago, right, with Tacfit, that I'm able to, jump on my hands and do push-ups on my hands and everything else. But the flow was the hardest for me. The hardest for me. And I did a instructional for Tacfit, for RMAX Tacfit, Crapples Toolbox 101. And so I did the thing that was the most difficult for me. It hurt so much. To do just move barely. But I believed in Scott. I believed in what, what it's about. And I believed in the stories. And so I just did it, I did it. And, little by little, I started to get better and better and better. And then I saw results but I don't think it's an exact rule that you have to do, start with the body weight and then do the other thing. I think the main thing is just the mindset, less is more, stay out of pain, right? But always focusing on the technique, right? And the technique follows, right? When you do the FlowFit certification, for example, you're connecting your breath with the movement. And of course, you want to have the right structure. With the club bell, you have weight, right? So you really have to have the structure in place. Just like if you deadlift or you squat heavy weight, and your breath has to be on point, right? Because you're gonna break your back, you're gonna break your body if you load up your back or do a crazy dead squat. You're not gonna lift it off. You have to have the structure in place. So yeah, I think it goes all around, the 3 rings of Tacfit was based on CST, right? Circular strength training. And so there's 3 rings and that's the parent of Tacfit, right? So Tacfit's like the recovery from stress, right? But CST has like the into flow, right, where we move all the joints around. It has the Prasarwa yoga, which is the flow fit, the 6-degree flow, the body flows, right? And the third component is the clubbell, right? Scott created the clubbell, right? This the steel club, right? So with all those things, you're really complete, and then of course Tacfit has all the other tools as well. So it just never ends, the journey, the learning. We have such amazing coaches, like we call it the Legion, in our Legion, that it's just amazing because you're always going to be learning. You're always going to be learning new stuff. And it's just a great community to be part of.
Yeah, I think maybe instead of saying it's not a rule to begin with bodyweight mastery, it's a begin to master the small techniques first before you can jump in. I remember, here's a good example. My very first club bell set I bought was 25s. I bought a pair of 25s day one. I'm like, well, I think, 25 pounds, this is nothing. I'm going to buy. That was my very first. And then I bought a 45. And just doing all stuff. But the technique, even though I could do it, and it wasn't a matter of ability, but it was technique. Mm-hmm. And now, regressing, I've got all different size clubs. I've got 5-pounders. I've got 2-pound Indian clubs. I've got heavy, meals. I've got all that stuff. But again, I guess I'm trying to say is people need to learn to master the small before you can just jump in. And I like, what's cool about Tacfit, this is another cool thing to kind of throw out there. There's regressions of everything. So, you never can outgrow this system, but it's never too hard to begin. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say is Joe Blow, guy who's sitting on his couch, hasn't exercised for years. He can pick up Flow Fit, and there's so many regressions in that anybody can do it. And I think that's the message there. But master the small things before you move on, like I said, because there's so many, like I said, this system never ends. It always has, there's always one more thing. Let me ask you this. What are you most passionate about right now?
Man, I'm so dialed in with just seeing Tacfit grow, right now I'm all in. I get up at 3-4 in the morning to start working on Tacfit things, because a lot of the team is on the East Coast, and also we work with some guys in Europe. So it works out with that. And then I still have my jiu-jitsu life. My gym is called Legacy. So, I do that. I have my Legacy block, so from like 10, 11, to, or sometimes 9, if I do the Tacfit class here, till like 2:00, and then I'm able to, I have an office. I'm here right now, that I can work in. And so, that way I can get like a full day with having other lives as well. Cause my family too, it works out now too, with all this, the pandemic, my kids don't have a lot of other activities, so they have to come and do jiu-jitsu. So it works out. I can watch them do jiu-jitsu, be a part of that, so it all kind of flows together. And then usually I end up doing some more even in the evening, just because there's so many things that we're trying to get done. But I just want to see it grow. I want to see it. I want to see people benefit from it. It'll change lives, save lives. It's all the right stuff. I want to see people benefit from it. So my legacy, my thing I'm passionate about, of course, jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is number one in my life. It's because of jiu-jitsu, the martial arts spirit, the spirit that it gave me, but combined with the right things of Tacfit, is the magic, and so Tacfit, seeing it grow, and I'm 100% committed, to making that happen.
I love it. And that passion's what's going to make carry this thing to new levels again and again. I mean, it's already a worldwide sensation, but it's that passion that really carries it. So one last question, kind of two-parter here. Where can people go to learn more about you, Tacfit again? And I'd like you to do this if you can. Can you give people some suggestions on digital programs, like if they're just starting out, and then give a suggestion for intermediate and then advanced? So, because we've got listeners on the scale. We've got elite athletes that are listening, and then we've got people who are absolute beginners. So where can they learn more about you? What would you recommend on that site? And if there anything else that you would like to share?
Yeah. So on Tacfit.com. And then we have a video, if you scroll down on the page, of a video where to start, and so and she says it, Alina, she tells to into flow for sure. Flow Fit 101 is a great place to start. The Clubhouse 101 has some complex movements, but for sure Flow Fit and into flow, and then any of the programs like King of Clubs, I think you can't go wrong with, for the clubbells. And Matt Wistwasser, he did kettlebell Spetsnaz 101.
Yeah.
So all the different movements. So I think just explore. Like I said, it's not like an encyclopedia, it's like a library of information. And so even all the information isn't over from RMAX yet, but we have so much content, hours and hours and hours, like years and years of information, So go to tacfit.com, scroll down. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Tacfit, and we have a Tacfit Legion closed group page. We have free classes on there. Our community is really, really engaged, So if you want to learn more or just interconnect with other people in the community, you can. We have certifications that we just put out this last week for next year, 2021. And like I was never one that I need a certification to do something or to make for a job, but it's just a personal journey, right? And I think there's all kinds of walks of life, and it gives you a goal. I think for me it helps to have like a goal if you're like a tournament or a fight or some event. So the certification is really nice for that, and it's very, very thorough. We just actually had our first Tacfit online certification. It was requested for over 10 years, and because of the pandemic, right, we had to do it, and it was a huge success. We had over 100 people on there. It was the highest passing rate. All our coaches, like I said, they give over, above and beyond, what they need to do, because they really believe in the system. And so we had, over 100 people from New Zealand, all up and down the Americas, Chile, Brazil, Colombia, all over Europe, Middle East, Lebanon, Armenia, Iran, you name it, Turkey, all of Malaysia, all over Asia, So I watched the sun come up in New Zealand because it was online, so you could see the different screens. So I would watch the sun come up in New Zealand, and I would watch the sun go down in Barcelona because our educational director, Nestor Serra, he's in Barcelona, so he was teaching the class. So it was pretty amazing. I got really emotional afterwards because I saw all the weeks and I saw people improving, from the first week to the last week. So it was like, man, we really did it, So I'm really excited to have that available, people don't have to travel and stuff, and it's legit, it's it's so legit. And so yeah, we have our calendar certifications that we just put out for 2021, the first half, Flow Fit, we have a Flow Fit, we have another Tacfit, and we have a Club Bell certification, and we just added the steel mace, with Isik, who was the original Tacfit guy, and he applied a lot of the principles of CST and Tacfit to that. So it's we co-brand, like a Viking Ninja is the name of his system. He has a whole belt ranking system, but it's a steel mace, certifications. We have steel mace, Flow Fit, Tacfit, and Club Bell. So we got everything covered. We have an amazing team. For me, I'm here in the gym, legacybjj.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Alberto Crane. I'm mainly on Instagram, Facebook, but Instagram is the best place to find me. I have my own website. I have a podcast as well, Alberto Crane Show. You can find me there. I just interviewed Greg Jackson, was the one we put out today. We have a lot of course, it's about, of course, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, fighting, the brain, since I'm kind of obsessed with that now, thanks to Scott, and human potential, human potential. Tacfit is definitely a way. Jiu-Jitsu, martial arts is a way. So I'm all about that. I've kind of dedicated my life to that. So thanks to Scott, he's given me more tools to help people be their best.
Awesome. I want to thank Master Alberto Crane for being our guest today and for investing in all of our listeners. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. It was an honor.
I also want to thank our sponsors, ZionMissionaryChurch.net, NeuroPowerSource.com, podcast producer Drew Kiespert, video director Jolynn Thomas, head of talent relations Mr. Fairfax Hackley. Be sure to rate us and subscribe to the Pressing Limits podcast and follow us on Instagram for the latest episodes. For more ways to watch and listen to this podcast, check out the Pressing Limits podcast website.